Welcome to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. Hey, I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Friday, May 14th, 2021, and we are live. Hope everybody's doing well today. It's been a very busy day. It's been a busy week. I was on Roland Martin Unfiltered today. I'm usually a panelist on each Friday. So on our Sunday show, we'll share a couple of excerpts on what happened on Roland Martin Unfiltered today. Roland was on location. He was in Houston, Texas. So the panel was only on for about 45 minutes to an hour. But on our Sunday show, we're on for 2 hours Sunday. So we'll share some excerpts there. All right. Well, look, on today's show, we've been covering the voter suppression bills that have been pushed by Republicans in 47 state legislatures based upon the big lie that the 2020 election was stolen and rampant with fraud. And, the big lie that Donald Trump and Republicans keep telling because they lost the election. All right. And they lie and say, "Oh, Donald Trump actually won the presidential election." They can't provide any evidence to prove it. But there's a leaked audio that came out. Mother Jones has a big article dealing with this. Leaked video. Dark money group brags about writing GOP voter suppression bills across the country. And, a lot of people are asking the question is, okay, so how did GOP come up with these bills so quickly and all across the country, and the bills are similar? Well, it's a coordinated effort. Okay, it's a coordinated effort. Jessica Anderson is the executive director of a right-wing organization called Heritage Action. And she said in the leaked video, she said, "We did it quickly and we did it quietly. We did it quickly and we did it quietly." So while you have some people continue to put nonsense out here, talking about voting doesn't matter and things like this, because they actually don't understand politics and don't understand law or any of this stuff. Then you have a coordinated effort by Republicans to pass these voter restriction bills, pushing the big lie, using the big lie to push these voter restriction bills to reduce how many people can vote so Republicans can win more elections and stay in power. Because politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. This is what politics is. Politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. So we're going to talk about this big story today. Chris Hayes on All In with Chris Hayes dealt with this on Thursday, May 13th. He also interviewed Ari Berman. So this really ties into what's going on right now, and then also the push to that's growing in various states that have a Republican state legislature and Republican governor. The push to ban critical race theory. We've been talking about that here on this show. There was a story out of Virginia. There's a story out of Virginia where the Virginia GOP lieutenant governor nominee slams critical race theory curriculum as nonsense. This is an African-American woman, at least phenotypically. Virginia Lieutenant Governor nominee Winsome Sears, the first Black female Republican to participate in the race, told Fox and Friends on Thursday, May 13th, that critical race theory curriculum is nonsense. Critical race theory curriculum is nonsense. Now, she's a Marine veteran. She pushed back against teaching children to see white people as their and their families as racist. But that's not what critical race theory teaches. Okay. And she went on to say it's going to be detrimental to our schools and not what we want. It supposedly is to help someone who looks like me, and I'm sick of it. I'm sick of being used by the Democrats, and so are many people who look like me. Well, see, people like Miss Sears, and we'll deal with this Sunday. We'll go in depth into the psychopathy of Negroes. We'll deal with those on Sunday. Miss Sears doesn't want to deal with white supremacy and racism and deal with systemic racism. Okay, she see her, and as well as Vernon Jones. We talked about Vernon Jones on when he was interviewed by Mark Lamont Hill back on May 4th on the Black News Channel. Vernon Jones got his behind kicked because Vernon Jones was talking about critical race theory and didn't know what it was. Okay, he was talking about critical race theory, and when he was pressed a number of times by Mark Lamont Hill to explain critical race theory, he didn't know what it was. Now, critical race theory is a legal analysis on the premise that race is a social construct. Okay, race is not biological, it's a social construct. There's one race, the human race. Race is a social construct that's used to oppress people of color, especially African Americans, rather than a natural biological feature. Critical race theorists hold that the law and legal institutions in the United States are inherently racist insofar as they function to create and maintain social, economic, and political inequalities between white people and white people and non-white people, especially African Americans. And that's from Britannica.com, dealing with critical race theory. We'll talk more about this on our Sunday show. And it's important to understand what racism is. Racism is a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race, coming out of the ideology of European white supremacy. Racism has nothing to do with not liking people or calling people racial epithets or calling people names. That's bigotry. Racism is a power structure. Racism is a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race, which comes out of the ideology of European white supremacy. Okay, so when you have these conversations, a lot of times people don't want to talk about really what racism is and deal with systemic racism. Okay, so we'll talk about the leaked video dealing with Dark Money Group, dealing with the Heritage Action group and the writing of GOP voter suppression bills, okay, that are sweeping across the country. And then also on today's show, May 12th, 1889, in Louisiana, Louisiana passed a law that disenfranchised African American voters. These are African American men at the time. African American voters, it disenfranchised them and made it illegal for them to sit on juries. Okay, so we'll talk about that as well. That took place in Louisiana back in 1898, May 12, 1898. May 12, 1898, Louisiana disenfranchises African American voters and jurors. All right, now you can still register for the online course that I teach, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. This is a 9-week online course that I teach. We deal with thousands of years of history and what led up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. We do the class live. It's on Saturdays, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Saturdays, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we do it on Saturdays. We do it live. Then all the sessions are recorded. So you can go back and watch it over and over again. You can watch it live, of course, watch from around the world. And there's a text chat as well, so you can ask questions in the text chat. But all the sessions are archived, so you can go back and watch it over and over again. So we just posted a link here. It's also at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. It's right on the homepage. So it's regularly $130 on sale, $80. And you still have access to the class even after the class is over with. Okay. So that's Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understand the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Teach this class on Saturdays, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So right on the homepage of our website, When you scroll down, you'll see the information about radio show. You can click here to listen to podcasts. Click here to read articles I've written, and then we have information for the online class here and the flyer. Click right here to register here. It takes you to the next page and click on enroll. Okay. And as soon as you register, you can start watching the content, and you can watch the class we did last Saturday. And then also I taught the class back in February and March 2021, starting in February for African American History Month. You can go watch that class as well. Right now on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the African History Network show. We deal with current events, history, politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, love, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, Kemet, to 22828. To sign up for our email newsletter, text the word Kemet, Kemet, to 22828. Sign up for our email newsletter. Also visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. If you want to support the African History Network, you can do so. $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, or through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show, or at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, right on the homepage. We're here 6 days a week. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills, etc. All right, I want to jump into this story here. This first story, Mother Jones broke this story, and this article came out Thursday, uh, May 13th, 2021. Leaked video, dark money group brags about writing GOP voter suppression bill across the country. Okay. Now, in a private meeting last month, in May of private meeting in this would be in April. I'm sorry, April 2021. In a private meeting in April 2021 with big money donors, the head of a top conservative group boasted that her organization had crafted the new voter suppression law in Georgia and was doing the same thing with similar bills for Republican state legislators across the country. Um, Quote, in some cases, we actually draft them for them, she said, or we have a sentinel on our behalf, give them the model legislation so it has that grassroots from the bottom up type of vibe. Uh, End quote. Now, the Georgia law had eight key provisions that the organization Heritage Action recommended. And this was said by Jessica Anderson, the executive director of the Heritage Action for America, which is a sister organization of the Heritage Foundation. And she told the foundation's donors at an April 22nd, 2021 meeting in Tucson, Arizona. She said in a recording obtained by the watchdog group documented, and shared with Mother Jones. I want to go to this first clip here. This is Ari Berman. We're going to go to clip one, Shakita. This is Ari Berman explaining this. Let's go to this clip. Okay, we have the clip playing. And take it off mute.
bills to leading the effort to block the For the People Act in Congress, Heritage is weaponizing Trump's big lie to motivate their donors and their base to strip Americans of their fundamental right to vote. To read my story with investigative reporter Nick Sergey of the Watchdog Group Documented, go to motherjones.com.
Okay, pause it right there, Shakita. We're coming up on the break. We're going to replay that on when we come back because people on Facebook and YouTube said they couldn't hear it. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation, The Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. That was Ari Berman from Mother Jones talking about leaked video. Dark Money Group brags about writing GOP voter suppression bills across the country. That was Jessica Anderson, Executive Director of the Heritage Action for America, in a meeting explaining this, how these bills were written. We'll deal with this on the other side of the break. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by. Stand by, everybody. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by. All right, how you all doing today? Okay, we've got Campbell and Sharon. Everybody share this broadcasting on social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in. Trying out a new microphone stand. Give me more space here. Okay, who still needs to register for the online course that I teach on Saturdays, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time? Stand by. Back from break in a minute. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, The Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Friday, May 14th, 2021. And we're live. We're here. We'll be back on Sunday. You know, on Sunday, we're on for 2 hours on Sunday, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So don't miss our Sunday show. Be sure to register for the online course that I teach on Saturdays, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa understand the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. And you can register right on the homepage of our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Okay, so right before the break, I was talking about this leaked video that was published by Mother Jones, the publication Mother Jones, news organization Mother Jones. And Ari Berman is narrating this video. The reporter Ari Berman, journalist Ari Berman, who's written a number of articles dealing with voter suppression, even going back to the 2016 presidential campaign. And in this video is executive director of Heritage Action for America. Heritage Action for America, which is a right-wing political organization that is a sister organization of the Heritage Foundation. Okay. And Jessica Anderson is explaining the crafting of these voter restriction bills that are in 47 state legislatures being pushed by Republicans. And she talked about the Georgia law, SB 202, that was signed into law by Brian Kemp, Governor Brian Kemp. And she talked about how Brian Kemp needed to sign that bill immediately as soon as it passed the state legislature. Within 1 hour of the bill passing the state legislature, Brian Kemp signed it into law. But the Georgia law had 8 key provisions that Heritage Action for America recommended. Okay. And those included policies severely restricting mail ballot drop boxes, preventing election officials from sending absentee ballot request forms to voters, making it easier for partisan workers to monitor the polls, preventing the collection of mail ballots, and restricting the ability of counties to accept donations from nonprofit groups seeking to aid in election administration. All of these recommendations came straight from Heritage Action for America's list of best practices drafted in February 2021. Okay, I want to go back to this clip again. Shakid, let's go back to clip 1.
I'm Ari Berman, voting rights reporter for Mother Jones, with an exclusive new video from Documented about a right-wing group leading the GOP's war on voting.
I had one message for him. Do not wait to sign that bill. If you wait even an hour, you will look weak. This bill needs to be signed immediately.
You're watching Jessica Anderson.
We know that the fraud is real. We know that it can be proven.
These choices really show that the swamp is alive and well.
The left is using this basically as psychological warfare.
A former Trump administration official, and now the executive director of Heritage Action for America, talking to top donors in Tucson, Arizona in late April. She's telling them about a meeting she had with Georgia Governor Brian Kemp just 3 days before the Georgia legislature passed a sweeping bill rolling back voting access in that state.
The state legislature in Georgia got it done, and you can help own this and cheerlead this if you sign it quickly. Do not delay.
But according to the video, Heritage Action did much more than just advocate for it.
Iowa was the first state that we got to work in, and we did it quickly and we did it quietly. Honestly, nobody noticed. At the end of the day, the bill that Governor Kemp signed and the Georgia legislature marshaled through had 8 key provisions that Heritage recommended.
This leaked video reveals how Heritage is leading a massive right-wing campaign to suppress voting rights in key battleground states like Georgia, Arizona, Florida, and Iowa just this year.
We're working with these state legislators to make sure they have all of the information they need to draft the bills. In some cases, we actually draft them for them, or we have a sentinel on our behalf, give them the model legislation. So it has that grassroots, from the bottom up type of vibe.
While these bills are being sold as protecting quote unquote election integrity, the real purpose seems to be to help Republicans win elections. They plan to spend $24 million over the next 2 years in Michigan, Nevada, Wisconsin, Texas,
Pennsylvania,
beyond, to quote unquote right the wrongs of November.
And we are going to take the fierce fire that is in every single one of our bellies to right the wrongs of November, to right the wrongs of the mistreatment against these men, and move it into other states.
The Heritage Foundation is one of the best funded think tanks in Republican circles. They write the policy, and their sister organization, the dark money group Heritage Action, makes it happen. From writing and advocating these anti-democratic bills to leading the effort to block the For the People Act in Congress, Heritage is weaponizing Trump's big lie to motivate their donors and their base to strip Americans of their fundamental right to vote. To read my story with investigative reporter Nick Sergey of the watchdog group Documented, go to motherjones.com.
Okay, so that's from Mother Jones. We have the article here. You can watch it in its entirety. You can watch the video in its entirety and read this article. Now, he talks about the Heritage Foundation. Heritage Foundation was founded in 1973 by a man named Paul Weyrich, was the co-founder of the Heritage Foundation. And Paul Weyrich is on the record previously saying that they don't want everybody to vote. It's in their best interest if everybody does not vote. They want to, this right-wing organization, they want to greatly reduce how many people are voting because they're going to turn out their conservative base to vote, okay? Paul Weyrich, father of the right-wing movement and co-founder of the Heritage Foundation, Moral Majority, and various other groups, said to his followers that he doesn't want people to vote. Okay, he complains that fellow Christians have Google syndrome, good government. Okay, and he said this back in 1980. I know on Politics Nation a few years ago, Reverend Al Sharpton talked about this and played a clip of Paul Weyrich as well. Okay, so Weyrich, Paul Weyrich. Paul Weyrich is one of the main founders of the Heritage Foundation. Okay, he's also let me see. I think Paul Weyrich was also a founder of ALEC, American Legislative Exchange Council, as well. Let me see something here. I think it was ALEC. He was a co-founder of as well. Let me see. Yeah, he was also a co-founder of ALEC, American Legislative Exchange Council, and he coined the term moral majority, the name of the political action group Moral Majority that he co-founded in 1979 with Jerry Falwell. Paul Weyrich co-founded the conservative think tanks, the Heritage Foundation, the Free Congress Foundation, and the American Legislative Exchange Council, also known as ALEC, ALEC, ALEC. One of the early members of ALEC was a man named John Engler. John Engler went on to become governor of state of Michigan for something like 16 years. John Engler. He was an early member of ALEC, American Legislative Exchange Council. So if we look quickly here at this article, and then we're going to go to clip 2, Shakita, from All In with Chris Hayes. Republican legislators claim they're tightening up election procedures to address unfounded concern about fraud in the 2020 election. But what's really behind this effort is a group of conservative Washington insiders who have been pushing these same kinds of voting restrictions for decades with the explicit aim of helping Republicans win elections. The difference now is that Trump's baseless claims about 2020 have given them the ammunition to get the bills passed, and the conservative movement led by Heritage Action for America, which is the sister organization of the Heritage Foundation, is making an unprecedented investment to get them over the finish line. Okay, now, and you heard them talk about Michigan. Now, Jocelyn Benson was on, she was on Ali Velshi tonight. I think she was Ali Velshi was on The Last Word, talking about this as well, and these efforts in Michigan from the Michigan State Legislature to pass these voter restriction bills. Now, Jessica Anderson, executive director of Heritage Action for America, said to create this echo chamber, Heritage is spending $24 million over 2 years in 8 battleground states, Arizona, Michigan, Florida, Georgia, Iowa, Nevada, Texas, and Wisconsin, to pass and defend to pass and defend restrictive voting legislation. Now, this is all based upon a lie. This is all based upon a lie. They're pushing the lie that the election was stolen. It was rampant fraud. The election was stolen from Donald Trump, right? So let me make sure I understand what you're saying. You're saying that Democrats rigged the election and had all this fraud for Joe Biden to become president, but they let Mitch McConnell beat Amy McGrath in Kentucky. They let Mitch McConnell win in Kentucky. Why didn't they have rampant fraud in Kentucky so Amy McGrath, the Democratic challenger, will beat Mitch McConnell in the senatorial race? There was rampant fraud so Joe Biden could beat Trump, but Democrats let Lindsey Graham beat Jamie Harrison in South Carolina. Why didn't they have rampant fraud in South Carolina for Jamie Harrison to beat Lindsey Graham? It's on the same ballot. It's on the same ballot. Okay? It doesn't make any sense. And if you're saying there was rampant fraud in the election, then why would you think that no fraudulent votes were for Republicans? The Republicans are on the same ballot. You had Republicans who won their congressional seats. It's like 200 and some odd Republicans won their congressional seats. You're trying to say no fraudulent votes were for Republicans? Is on the same ballot. It was on the same ballot, the same race that you said that fraudulent votes were casted for Donald Trump. Well, Republicans were on the same ballot and they won their races. Were any votes fraudulent for Republicans? Because when you go through and analyze this, it doesn't make any sense. So I want to go to this next clip here. This is from All In with Chris Hayes. This is from Thursday, May 13th. Leaked video shows right-wing group bragging about drafting GOP anti-voter bills. And Chris Hayes speaks with Ari Berman of Mother Jones. Let's go to this clip, Shakita.
Senate is considering a bill that would, surprise, surprise, make it much harder to vote in the next election. As it's written right now, the bill would limit polling places and early voting, allow partisan poll watchers to videotape voters, which sounds awful. It's one of hundreds of such bills, mostly sponsored by Republicans, introduced in state legislatures across the country. Voting restrictions have already passed in 11 states under Republican control: Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Montana, Utah, and Wyoming. Many of the bills sound so strikingly similar, it's been pretty clear they weren't born in the organic laboratories of democracy. Tonight, we have a better idea of where the language in these bills is coming from. Mother Jones obtained leaked video of a private meeting between the Heritage Foundation and its donors in Arizona last month. In it, Jessica Anderson, that's the executive director of a Heritage sister organization, appears to basically brag about helping write these voter restriction bills and give them a grassroots vibe.
We're working with these state legislators to make sure they have all of the information they need to draft the bills. In some cases, we actually draft them for them, or we have a sentinel on our behalf give them the model legislation. So it has that grassroots, from the bottom up type of vibe.
We have a sentinel give it to them so it has that grassroots vibe. After a comment by Mother Jones, Jessica Anderson responded, and I'll read the whole thing here. We are proud of our work at the national level and in states across this country to promote common sense reforms that make it easier to vote and harder to cheat. We've been transparent about our plans and public with our policy recommendations, and we won't be intimidated by the left smear campaign and cancel culture. Don't worry, Jessica. We are not here to cancel you. Ari Berman, senior reporter at Mother Jones, broke the exclusive story today, and he joins me now. All right, give us context. What's the event? Who is Jessica Anderson, and what is she describing in the video you obtained?
Hey, Chris. Well, thank you for having me back. So Jessica Anderson is Executive Director of Heritage Action for America, which is a sister organization of the Heritage Foundation. She is at an event on April 22nd in Arizona for their top donors. And she is going through and talking about how they are writing what she calls model legislation restricting voting rights all across the country. That Heritage is literally writing these bills for Republican state legislators. in Texas, in Arizona, in Georgia, in Florida. And that's why we've seen so many bills suppressing the right to vote in such a short period of time that are all basically exactly the same. It's not a coincidence that's happening. Heritage is literally coordinating this effort and bragging about it at this donor meeting.
Yeah, in fact, she talks about, I mean, the Iowa thing is interesting. We did cover it on the show, by the way, and it was one of the first. She says we sort of did it and no one noticed, and we were kind of laughing to ourselves like we got away with one, more or less. Here she is talking about pressuring Governor Kemp in Georgia to not lose his nerve and to make sure to bulldoze through. Take a listen.
I was able to sit down with Governor Kemp 3 days before he signed the election package in Georgia, and I had one message for him. Do not wait to sign that bill. If you wait even an hour, you will look weak. This bill needs to be signed immediately.
Is Jessica Anderson's background, was she a Trump administration official, is that right?
Yeah, she was a Trump administration official. I think what's so revealing about that is Heritage, from the very beginning, coordinated the entire campaign to pass voter suppression in Georgia. They helped write the legislation, they lobbied for the legislation, and then once the legislation passed, they said to Brian Kemp, you have to sign it immediately. And that's what he did. He signed it within an hour. They gave the same message to Republican governors in Arizona, in Florida, and Texas. They've done the same thing. The governor of Arizona rushed to sign the new voter suppression law just an hour after it passed in Arizona this week. Ron DeSantis signed the voter suppression bill in Florida as a Fox and Friends exclusive. So what you have here is one of the most influential dark money groups in Republican circles writing voter suppression laws in secret to make it harder for Black, brown, and young people to be able to vote. I mean, this is a really shocking development for democracy.
Yeah, and one of the things that you see in this presentation is they are very focused. You have the states doing this, and now there's this federal legislation. There's a HR1 S1, or the For the People Act, which would be a sort of baseline threshold of voting access, which it would regularize across the country, as well as some campaign finance reform aspects, a bunch of other things. They have that. Jessica Anderson, again, the woman that you saw there who runs that Heritage Sister Network, a person you should know about who's doing a lot of work that she would want you to know about. She talks about killing HR1 and S1 as top priorities for them.
She does. She says if they don't kill S1, we lose our republic, period. That's the language she used. So they have a two-pronged approach here. They're spending $24 million to make it harder to vote in 8 battleground states, and they're trying to block the federal legislation that would make it easier to vote. And the fascinating thing here is that you have dark money funding and organizing voter suppression. That's the exact thing the For the People Act would stop. That's why the For the People Act has money in politics and voting rights combined, because this is what we're seeing. We are seeing an attack on voting rights that's being organized and funded by millions and millions of dollars in dark money. So these issues are connected. The only way to fix our democracy is to look at these issues holistically. And that's why conservatives and Republicans are so terrified of the For the People Act, because they know it'll fix our democracy in the very ways that they're trying to undermine it.
Yeah, amazing reporting as always, Ari. Jessica Anderson, we kept our promise to you. We are not canceling you. We want everyone to know about the work you're doing. Thank you so much, Ari.
Okay, pause it right there. All right, great reporting. You're going to hear more about this. Read this article here from Mother Jones. Leaked video, dark money group brags about writing GOP voter suppression bills across the country. Okay. If our vote didn't matter, why are they spending $24 million to suppress our vote? Why do they have 361 bills in 47 state legislatures, Republicans these voter restriction bills trying to make it harder to vote if our vote doesn't matter? If we look at we scroll down further in this article here, it talks about the Heritage Foundation, and I sent you clip number 3, Shakita. So cue that up for me, please. It's only 40 seconds. I'm about to go to that. The Heritage Foundation was co-founded in 1973 by Paul Weyrich, a well-connected conservative activist on a mission to create more aggressive conservative infrastructure to rival more liberal think tanks like the Brookings Institution. Paul Weyrich, who was also the Heritage Foundation's first president, went on to co-found the American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC. Okay, see, this is all stuff I've studied years ago. And watch the documentary ALEC Exposed, ALEC, ALEC Exposed. It's on YouTube. And it exposes the organization ALEC, which is a organization made up of corporations who want access to members of state legislatures so they can craft policies in state legislatures and get policies passed. This is what ALEC is, American Legislative Exchange Council. So Paul Weyrich, who was also the Heritage Foundation's first president, went on to co-found the American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC, which pairs corporations with conservative state legislators to draft model legislation. And the moral majority with Jerry Falwell, which mobilized evangelical voters behind GOP causes and candidates. Now, the Heritage Foundation received major funding from leading right-wing donors such as Charles and David Koch, Richard Mellon Scaife, and Joseph Coors. Speaking in 1980 at a meeting of evangelical leaders in Dallas, Texas, Paul Weyrich bluntly articulated his radical view on voting rights. He said, "I don't want everybody to vote. Elections are not won by a majority of the people. They have never been from the beginning of our country, and they are not now. As a matter of fact, our leverage in the elections quite candidly goes up as the voting populace goes down." But you'd rather hear from Paul Weyrich himself. So press play, Shakita. The clip 3.
Now, many of our Christians have what I call the goo-goo syndrome. Good government. They want everybody to vote. I don't want everybody to vote. Elections are not won by a majority of people. They never have been from the beginning of our country, and they are not now. As a matter of fact, our leverage in the elections quite candidly goes up as the voting populace goes down.
Okay, so that's Paul Weyrich from 1980 explaining that he does not want everybody to vote. Okay. And I first came across that clip back in, it was back in, I think it was 2000, maybe in 2014, 2012, something like that. And it was on Politics Nation, Reverend Al Sharpton's show on MSNBC back when he was on Monday through Friday. And he played that clip. And I started doing research on the Heritage Foundation and Paul Weyrich. I was familiar with them some. It caused me to start doing more research on them. And at the same time, I was studying ALEC, American Legislative Exchange Council, as well. But that clip is on YouTube also. Okay. So you can check that out. Paul Weyrich on voting. If you just Google Paul Weyrich on voting, and that's on YouTube. Let me pull this up real quick. It's about a 40-second clip, but this exposes what's really going on here and the effort to suppress the vote. Now, this all ties into the fear of the browning of America. And all of this is connected, okay? And using the big lie to try to fulfill their agenda to suppress the vote, okay? For Republicans to fulfill their agenda to suppress the vote. All right, so read the rest of this article here from Mother Jones. The clip on YouTube is Paul Weyrich against voting. Paul Weyrich against voting, so check that out. All right, Paul Weyrich against voting. And you'll hear more about this as well. All right, I want to go to this. This next story here before we run out of time. Equal Justice Initiative, EJI.org, has information dealing with May 12th, 1898. May 12th, 1898, when Louisiana disenfranchised African American voters. May 12, 1898, and made it illegal for us to sit on juries. Okay, now this was African American men, because African American women at this time could not vote. May 12, 1898, Louisiana disenfranchises Black voters and jurors. Now, on May 12, 1898, the state of Louisiana adopted a new constitution with numerous restrictive provisions intended to exclude African American men from civic participation. It sounds like what's going on today with the big lie that's being pushed. At this time in the U.S., women of all races remained barred from voting because the 19th Amendment had not passed. Okay, 19th Amendment of 1920. While African American men had recently gained the right to vote under the 14th and 15th Amendments of the U.S. Constitution, 1868 and 1870. The new Louisiana Constitution, however, created a poll tax, literacy and property ownership requirements, and a complex voter registration form, all designed and enforced to disproportionately disenfranchise African American male voters. So the new Louisiana Constitution, this is the Louisiana State Constitution, created a poll tax, literacy test, and property ownership requirements, and a complex voter registration form, all designed and enforced to disproportionately disenfranchise African American male voters. Okay, well, this reminds me of SB 202 from Georgia, and there are eight restrictions in the bill that Ms. Jessica and the Heritage Action of America wanted in the bill, and this is targeting African Americans. This is targeting Hispanics. They're not trying to make it harder for white Republicans to vote. Let's go back and look at this right here. Okay? Because, see, you have to understand white supremacy and racism, what it is and how it works. The Georgia law had 8 key provisions that Heritage Action for America recommended. Jessica Anderson, the executive director, said. These included policies that severely restricted mail ballot drop boxes, prevented election officials from sending absentee ballot request forms to voters, making it easier for partisan workers to monitor polls, preventing the collection of mail ballots and restricting the ability of counties to accept donations from nonprofit groups seeking to aid in election administration. Okay, so just as back in 1898, they were putting restrictions in to make it harder for African Americans to vote, this is what they're doing today. And Georgia is a former Confederate state. Louisiana is a former Confederate state also, one of those states that committed treason against the U.S., took up arms to maintain slavery. Okay, so this is, and as I said on Roland Martin Unfiltered today, Georgia is the state that has the largest Confederate monument in this country. It's called Stone Mountain, S-T-O-N-E. Google Stone Mountain. Stone Mountain Confederate Monument. It's a huge mountain. I've been to Stone Mountain. I've climbed to the top of Stone Mountain. That's the largest Confederate monument in this country. On the side of Stone Mountain, you have carved in it are the images of General Robert E. Lee. Okay, you have Thomas Stonewall Jackson. Okay, and Jefferson Davis. Jefferson Davis was from Mississippi. Jefferson Davis was the president, the first president of the Confederacy. This is Jefferson Davis. Okay, look at this article here from SmithsonianMag.com, official magazine and website of Smithsonian Institute. What will happen to Stone Mountain, America's largest Confederate monument? What will happen to Stone Mountain, America's largest Confederate monument memorial? What will happen to Stone Mountain, America's largest Confederate memorial? The Georgia landmark is a testament to the enduring legacy of white supremacy. That's not me. That's the Smithsonian Magazine saying this. This is white people telling you this. Now, this is Stone Mountain. This is what's on the side of Stone Mountain. Three of the biggest traitors to the country. They committed treason based upon Article 3, Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution. And they were all slave owners. And they committed treason against the Union, separated from the Union, formed a Confederacy, took up arms, and they wanted to maintain slavery. This is not 1927. This is not 1957. This is there right now in Georgia right now. Stone Mountain. Okay, so read this article here. All right. We're out of time here on 910 AM Superstation WFDF. Those watching on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, and my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep. Keep watching. We're going to keep going for a few more minutes. We'll be back Sunday. Remember, right now it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you later. Peace. All right, stand by, everybody. Stand by. Okay. Let's continue here. Oh, what the hell happened? Okay, stand by. Let's continue. Yeah, so check this article out here dealing with Stone Mountain in Georgia. Okay, from Smithsonian Mag. I've been to Stone Mountain. I've climbed to the top of Stone Mountain also. Okay. I'm not sure what's. Stand by. Let me refresh the screen. Stand by. Stand by. Okay. Check out this article here from Smithsonian Mag. And this deals with Stone Mountain. I've been to Stone Mountain in Georgia, and there's a trail that they built. You can climb up the mountain. People use it for exercise and things like this. There's also a cable car that you can take to and from Stone Mountain to go to the top. I've climbed to the top of Stone Mountain. This is a trailway that you walk up. This was back in 2017. All right. So let's go back to this. So the Louisiana state constitution barred disenfranchised African-American men and made it illegal for us to sit on juries also. This was in 1898. And I wanted to pull up something else here. Okay, we'll pull something else up here. But the new Louisiana Constitution created a poll tax, literacy, and property ownership requirements, and a complex voter registration form, all designed and enforced to disproportionately disenfranchise African-American male voters. Now, in 1865, the year 1865 included the Confederacy's defeat in the Civil War, widespread emancipation, and the abolition of slavery. All of these developments threatened to overturn Southern culture. All of these developments threatened to overturn Southern culture and social relations, which were based in white supremacy and racial hierarchy. After Reconstruction ended in 1877, and white politicians and lawmakers regained control and power in the South, many efforts were made to restore that racial order through very strict laws that stripped African Americans of many of their new civil rights, including the right to vote. Also, it's going to be right around 1870 that you're going to start seeing states put into place felony disenfranchisement laws, meaning that if you were convicted of a felony, you couldn't vote anymore. We're going to see this start coming into play around 1870 and hit different states as well. Okay, as a way to disenfranchise African American men. Now, after Reconstruction ended in 1877, and white politicians and lawmakers regained control, uh, regained control and power in the South, many efforts were made to restore. Many efforts were made to restore the racial order through very strict laws that stripped African Americans of many of their new civil rights, including the right to vote. Okay, this would be African American women at the time. I mean, African American men at the time. In Louisiana, framers explicitly expressed their goal to purify the electorate. They explicitly expressed their goal to purify the electorate. Now, we talked about purity at the ballot box a few days ago when we dealt with Texas, okay, and Republican State Representative Briscoe Kane in Texas. There was a debate over the voter restriction bill in Texas, and the phrase purity of the ballot box came up, and the all white primaries that Texas had going back to 1918. Okay. Let me see here. Yeah, and this dealt with purity of the ballot box. Um, we talked about this a few days ago, and this is in the Texas State Constitution. Okay, back in 1918. Article 6, in all elections by the people, the legislature shall make regulations as may be necessary to detect and punish fraud and preserve the purity of the ballot box, the purity of the ballot box. They wanted to keep African Americans from voting. This was the purity of the ballot box. This is from the Texas State Constitution. Okay, we talked about that here on this show a few days ago. All right, now, and then Rachel Maddow did a good segment on this on the Rachel Maddow show on MSNBC. So in Louisiana, framers explicitly expressed their goal to purify the electorate. Okay, and I think we have one of those articles here that I referenced a few days ago. This one right here from the New York Times. Many of you all saw this one because we talked about it here on the show. A Texas bill drew ire for saying it would preserve purity of the ballot box. Here's the phrase's history. A Texas bill drew ire for saying it would preserve purity of the ballot box. Here's the phrase's history. Now, this article is from May 9th, 2021. And State Representative Raphael Anchia, who's a Democrat, broke down this history to Representative Briscoe Kane, Republican, who Briscoe Kane was ignorant of the history of these laws in Texas. Now, one of the things this article talks about is how this purity of the ballot box spread to other states also. Okay, this purity of the ballot box spread to other states as well. All right, let's go back to the one from the Equal Justice Initiative. Okay, so in Louisiana, framers explicitly expressed their goal to purify the electorate. Now, when the restrictive voting provisions were first proposed for the 1898 Louisiana Constitution, some white officials expressed concern. That the property and literacy requirements would also disenfranchise an estimated 25% of the white male population, okay, voting age. They were afraid that the literacy and property requirements, probably requiring that you have to own land, that this would disenfranchise 25% of the white male population, because you had a lot of illiterate white people back at this time also. You had a lot of illiterate white people. Now, in response, lawmakers drafted a grandfather clause, which created an exception for those whose ancestors were registered to vote before 1867. Now, if your ancestors were registered to vote before 1867, there's a good chance that you weren't African American. If your ancestors were registered to vote before 1867, it's a good chance that you were not African American. Now, this clause enabled many illiterate and poor white men to get around the literacy and property requirements, okay? Because many of their ancestors were registered to vote before 1867. African Americans remained blocked because Louisiana laws before 1867 disenfranchised nearly all African American men, especially those who were enslaved. The 1898 Louisiana Constitution also eliminated the requirement of unanimous jury verdicts. It also eliminated the requirement of unanimous jury verdicts, allowing as much as a 9-3 split to still stand as a conviction. Because the U.S. Constitution now prevented states from wholly barring African Americans from jury service, this provision was enacted to render small numbers of African American jurors inconsequential. So if you have one or two African American jurors on a jury and they say somebody's not guilty, well, you need a 9-3. It allows a 9-3 split. If 9 people say the person's guilty and 3 people say the person's not guilty, well, the majority rules. So the Louisiana state constitution eliminated the requirement of unanimous jury verdicts, allowing as much as a 9-3 split to still stand as a conviction. Now, there was I was looking at an article here because there was a recent change to the, if I remember correctly, Vox.com has an article here. Louisiana votes to eliminate Jim Crow jury law with Amendment 2. Okay. This is from November 6, 2018. This is from Vox.com. Louisiana votes to eliminate Jim Crow jury law with Amendment 2. The law made Louisiana one of 2 states that allowed a non-unanimous jury in felony trials. I'm trying to explain to people, elections have consequences. And as I've said before, you have 50 individual state governments that operate based under one U.S. Constitution, but there are 50 individual state governments, and these state governments have different laws, different policies, different things like this. So Louisiana voters during Tuesday's midterm election, now this is from November 2018, okay, this article. Louisiana voters during Tuesday's midterm elections approved Amendment 2, eliminating a Jim Crow law that made Louisiana one of 2 states allowing non-unanimous juries in felony trials. In the late 19th century, 1898, Louisiana was faced with a new constitutional requirement after the passage of the U.S. Constitution's 14th Amendment of 1868, that forced the state of Louisiana to include African Americans in juries, because the 14th Amendment gave citizenship rights. Since Louisiana required juries to reach unanimous decisions as is standard, this meant a single African American on the jury would have a lot of power, which would weaken white Louisianans hold over the state, its government, and its laws. See, once again, racism is a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race. This Jim Crow era law, this 9-3 that allows a 9-3 split for felony convictions, this was specifically crafted to strip African Americans of power when it comes to sitting on juries. This comes out of white supremacy. This is something that critical race theory is analyzing. Okay, this ties directly into law. This ties directly into law. Critical race theory, as we said before, this is dealing with understanding how laws and policies, understanding how the institutions in America are inherently racist, and it's dealing with understanding these laws and policies that are used to suppress and oppress non-white people, African Americans especially. Okay, racism is a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race, which comes out of the ideology of European white supremacy. Okay, racism has nothing to do with not liking people or calling people racial epithets or things like this. Racism is a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race. All right. And if you look at the article here from, we talked about this before, from a Black News Channel. When we talked a few days ago, when we talked about Vernon Jones on being interviewed by Mark Lamont Hill, Vernon Jones wants to ban critical race theory, but can't define what it is. Let me bring this one up here. Yeah, this is an article from Black News Channel. Let's see. Vernon Jones wants to ban critical race theory, but can't define what it is. Critical race theory is a legal analysis on the premise that race is a social construct. Race is a social construct that is used to oppress people of color rather than a natural biological feature. Okay. And what they're really talking about is racism. Racism is a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race, which comes out of the ideology of European white supremacy. And this is for the purpose of preserving genetic white survival. Now, they cite Britannica.com here for critical race theory. Critical race theory is a legal analysis on the premise that race is a social construct that is used to oppress people of color. Critical race theorists hold that the law and legal institutions in the United States are inherently racist insofar as they function to create and maintain social, economic, and political inequalities between whites and non-whites, especially African Americans. So once again, when Senator Tim Scott, Wednesday, April 28th, when he delivered his rebuttal to the to Joe Biden's speech to a joint session of Congress, and when Tim Scott said America is not a racist country, this is what he was talking about. He's talking about critical race theory. He's talking about the 1619 Project. This is what he was talking about, because that is, once again, that speech that he delivered, that was the GOP response to Joe Biden's speech. That's how the GOP thinks. Okay. So read this full article here from the Washington Post. Senator Tim Scott's comments on race ignite a fiery debate. People don't understand this strategy, because these bills that have come out since August 28th from Republicans, banning critical race theory in various states like Idaho. It looks like it's going to be banned in Texas as well. It already passed the Texas House the Texas House, and it's on the fast track to be signed into law by the governor. All that falls in line with the policies and the agenda that was laid out in this 15-minute speech. So, as I've said before, people miss the most important thing that Tim Scott said in that speech. It was after he said America's not a racist country. The next thing he said is, it's backwards to fight discrimination with different types of discrimination. And it's wrong to try to use our painful past to dishonestly shut down debates in the present. When he says it's backwards to fight discrimination with different types of discrimination, he's talking about policies like the $5 billion allocated to African-American farmers and farmers of color in the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. He's dealing with policies that address systemic racism. That's what he's talking about, because that's how Republicans think. They're against these policies that address systemic racism. Many of them against teaching about systemic racism, 1619 Project, critical race theory, things like this. That's what he's talking about. So read this article in its entirety from Washington Post. All right, now let's go back to this one here from, well, we were looking at the one from Vox.com. This deals with the change in the Louisiana state constitution in 2018. Okay. So since Louisiana, this is back to the article from Vox.com, Louisiana votes to eliminate Jim Crow jury law with Amendment 2. Okay. See, this is why understanding history is so important. History teaches you how you got to this point that you are now. What happened? Why did it happen? And then what do you need to do to correct the conditions? A people's history and culture teaches them how to deal with the problems of the past and the present and the future to meet the needs of the community. This is what our history and culture does for us. And as you hear me say all the time, what you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. Okay, so this is why African history and culture is so important. We'll go back to this here. Also, be sure to register for the online course that I teach on Saturdays, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. This is a 9-week online course that I teach, and we deal with thousands of years of history, and we deal with what led up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place also. Okay, so all the sessions are archived, so as soon as you register, you can watch last Saturday's class, and then you can join us live in class as well. All right, so since Louisiana required juries to reach unanimous decisions as is standard, this meant a single African American on the jury would have a lot of power, which would weaken white Louisianans' hold over the state, its government, and its laws. The state found a workaround as part of a constitutional convention in 1898 meant to perpetuate the supremacy of the Anglo-Saxon race in Louisiana, quote unquote, meant to, quote, perpetuate the supremacy of the Anglo-Saxon race in Louisiana, end quote. It enacted, now this was part of a constitutional convention in 1898 in Louisiana. It enacted a slew of Jim Crow measures. One of them allowed split juries for felony trials, so the few African American jurors could be easily overruled by a white majority. Lawrence Powell, a historian at Tulane University in New Orleans, said this was part of the 1898 Constitutional Convention, which is famous for disenfranchising African American voters. It was also around the time of the Plessy versus Ferguson U.S. Supreme Court case, that was 1896, that just got sanctioned from the U.S. Supreme Court for racial segregation. It's all part of that mix. It's all connected. Louisiana was one of 2 states that allow split jury decisions in criminal cases requiring just 10 of 12 jurors to agree to a verdict in serious felony trials. Oregon, the state of Oregon, is the only other state that allows split juries, but even it requires unanimous verdicts for murder trials. But even it requires unanimous verdicts for murder trials. So for murder trials, you have to have unanimous 12 jurors say guilty. Okay. All right. So read the rest of this here. Louisiana votes to eliminate Jim Crow jury law with Amendment 2. And let me see something here. Okay. I was trying to look for something else here. All right, just a minute here. Okay. Trying to find one more thing here. Okay, so yeah, that amendment passed. Louisiana voters scrapped Jim Crow era split law. Unanimous verdicts to be required. This is November 6, 2018. A state voters jettisoned a 120-year-old mainstay of Louisiana justice Tuesday, overwhelmingly passing a constitutional amendment to require unanimous juries in all felony trials and ending an aberrant practice rooted in the Jim Crow era. Let me see something here. Yeah, if we look at this here from NOLA.com, a New Orleans publication. Let's flip over to this. Yeah, so that amendment passed. Amendment 2 passed. Yeah, they repealed that law from 1898. Louisiana approves unanimous jury requirement scrapping Jim Crow era law. This is from November 7, 2018. Louisiana voted Tuesday, November 6, 2018, to require unanimous juries for all felony convictions involving crimes that take place after 2018. The voters approved a state constitutional amendment ending a Jim Crow era law that has dominated the state's legal system. Okay, so read the rest of this here. But see, this is an example of systemic racism and it being pervasive in the laws. All right, if we go back to this piece from Equal Justice Initiative. So the 1898 Louisiana Constitution also eliminated the requirement of unanimous jury verdicts, allowing as much as a 9-3 split to still stand as a conviction. Because the U.S. Constitution now prevented states from wholly barring African Americans from jury service, the provision was enacted to render small numbers of African American jurors inconsequential. Thomas Seams, a former Confederate senator and head of the convention's Judiciary Committee, praised the provision for success in its goal to establish, quote, the goal, he said the goal, quote, to establish the supremacy of the white race in this state to the extent to which it could be legally and constitutionally done. Okay, this was the goal of the law. Former Confederate Senator Thomas Seams and head of the convention's Judiciary Committee praised the provision for success in its goal, quote, to establish the supremacy of the white race in this state to the extent to which it could be legally and constitutionally done. The 1898 Louisiana Constitution eliminated federally enforced voting rules that had enfranchised African American men in Louisiana during Reconstruction had enforced their right to vote. As a result, the number of African American registered voters dropped from 130,000 before the new Constitution to just 5,000 by 1900, 2 years after the Constitution went into effect. Okay. As a result of this disenfranchisement in the 1898 Louisiana Constitution, the number of African American registered voters dropped from 130,000 before the new Constitution to just 5,000 by 1900, 2 years later. By 1904, the number had dropped to just 1,000. So 1897, you have 130,000 African Americans registered to vote. By 7 years later, by 1904, you have only 1,000 registered to vote. Now, throughout the southern states, disenfranchisement laws targeted African American communities for generations. Louisiana's 1898 Constitution was revised slightly in 1913, but most of its restrictive language remained until 1972. The non-unanimous jury rule remained in effect for more than a century until Louisiana voters approved a constitutional amendment to abolish it in November 2018. This is an example of how elections have consequences. This is an example of how voting strategically matters. They were able to amend the Louisiana state constitution. You don't amend it by just crying about it. You have to vote about it. You don't amend it by just protesting. You have to vote about it. So they had to vote to change the Louisiana state constitution. All right, check this out from Equal Justice Initiative. Louisiana disenfranchises black voters and jurors. Okay, Louisiana disenfranchises black voters and jurors May 12th, 1898. All right, well, look, if you want to advertise with the African History Network, email us at AHNShow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AHNShow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. African American business owners, we'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network. Current promotion is buy 1 month, get 1 month free. Be sure to register for the online course that I teach, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. And class meets on Saturdays, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We deal with thousands of years of history and what led up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles, video clips. It's a lot of information. All the sessions are recorded, so you can go back and watch them over and over again. So you don't have to worry about trying to be in class. Okay, if you can't make it when we're live, that's fine. All right, so email us at AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Yeah, if you want to advertise with the African History Network. And we'll post this information here. All right, we have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's corrects wrong behavior. You can also support us through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App. Be sure to type in $ the AHN Show, SHOW, through Cash App or through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show, paypal.me/the AHN Show. Remember, right now it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. We're kind of forever. And we'll talk to you on Sunday.
Gain knowledge in minutes from insightful summaries of progressive and socially conscious books. Blacklisted gives you access to curated content that'll satisfy your curiosity to learn and understand different perspectives. Empower yourself through inspirational and actionable ideas. It's easy to read or listen to on the go. Blacklisted. Empower yourself. Start your free trial today.
Are you getting ready for fall or winter? We have the solution for all seasonal clothing needs. Kemeticwear.com is the go-to online source for Kemetic African fashion and lifestyle products with a contemporary twist. We're committed to offering unique styles reflecting our African heritage. Kemeticwear.com is inspired by KemeticScribes.com to influence our people in learning and showing pride. Please visit our website at Kemeticwear.com.
We all know the cannabis industry is headed toward an uprise in the past decade. What happens when there is a brand that brings this uprise in a blow? The cannabis industry welcomes her uprise. Hustle her hemp. Delivering excellence with pride is her watchword, and how you choose to embrace it makes it a priority. From cultivating rich cannabis into exquisite and tastefully finished CBD products to delivery, Hustle Her Hemp leaves no stone unturned. Hustle Her Hemp's mission is to empower women of color by building business and creating legacies, uniting beauty, health, and business. We are a pure definition of how we want the CBD industry to become in the future. While we are redefining innovation, we bring the same energy to improving the quality of life. Hustle Her Hemp is the new uprise.
Hi, I'm Joel Wilson, President and CEO of JCW Computer Consulting LLC, a technology implementation firm with over 20 years of satisfying customers. We offer a full spectrum of industry top-tier branded services. We are an authorized partner or reseller for Lenovo, Zoom, T-Mobile, Microsoft 365 and Surface tablets, Google Workspace, Acer, Asus, Samsung, PCmatic security software, and many more. Our online store features laptops, Chromebooks, computers, printers, accessories, and software. Businesses, take advantage of our free 1-hour Zoom tech consultation and know we offer top nationwide high-speed internet service providers, voice over IP, and cellular phone services. Home users, don't miss our current in-stock Chromebook inventory. Please visit us at jcwcc.com or call 215-879-6701.
All right. Well,